somewhere between science and superstition, there is another world. The world of darkness. Nobody believed it, and nothing could stop it. The one hope, the only hope, The Exorcist.
Welcome to another episode of Midnight Movies. It's officially October, which means my favorite time of the year has started. Halloween, the time of the year when you spend all month having marathons of horror movies that you've seen 1,000 times. And what does Halloween season mean for this channel? I'm going to spend all month getting you in the Halloween spirit. And what an excellent day for an exorcism it is. The Exorcist, a story about a demon-possessed girl and the two priests fighting to save her, which was based off the 1971 novel of the same name. And the novel was inspired by the true story of an exorcism of a young boy in 1949. And while the facts of that exorcism and the full story behind it have been debated, I think knowing this makes the movie even more interesting to watch, because the director, William Friedkin, was actually allowed to look through the diary of one of the priests that were involved in that exorcism for inspiration. And he was able to speak with some of the doctors and nurses involved, and even the boy's aunt. The Exorcist is thought by some to be the scariest movie of all time. And for good reason. In today's world of modern horror movies, there's been countless ones made about demons and possessions, but back in 1973, audiences had never seen anything like that. On top of that, there was so much craziness surrounding this movie. I mean, you hear all the stories about people passing out during the movie, people leaving early, and the set for the house during filming burnt down. Except for the room where the exorcism actually takes place. Two of the actors that were in the movie died while the movie was in post-production, and their characters happened to also die in the movie. They even had a priest come out to bless the set. But the stories extend decades past the movie's release date. Everybody that watched this movie when they were younger has the first time I watched The Exorcist story. I remember mine vividly. When I was a kid, my older sister would stay up late at night and eventually pass out on the couch. And of course, being a kid, I didn't want to go to sleep. I was always the last one to go to sleep in the house. I'd stay up watching whatever was on TV, so I got exposed to a lot of horror movies, a lot of scary shows, especially Tales from the Crypt. If you remember that, leave me a comment down below. That show was awesome. For some reason, I never came across The Exorcist. I mean, I knew what it was because you'd hear people talking about it, you'd see commercials on TV, you just knew what it was. You know, I had to be around 10 or 11 when I first watched it. My friend Ryan, who you've seen in some of my other videos appear briefly, he was sleeping over one night. And earlier in the day, we had gone to the library. Anytime he slept over, one of our parents would drive us to the library and we'd have a giant bag that we would just fill it with movies. You know, like it was Halloween and we were trick-or-treating. You know, and they were free, so you just put a ton of movies in the bag and go home and watch them. So we raided that movie section and took home a ton of VHS tapes, an ancient technology that would play on a VCR. For my younger viewers out there, see Return of the Jedi? This is a VHS tape. Beautiful. No menus, no scene selections. You had to rewind the entire thing if you wanted to watch the movie over again. Inconvenience at its finest. The Exorcist was one of those movies that made it into the movie bag. And later that night, when my parents had gone to bed, we whipped out that Exorcist VHS tape, and it was like the forbidden fruit, you know? You were so curious how it tasted, and you knew you weren't supposed to. So they were off to bed, we turned off the lights, and popped that bitch into the VCR. Oh my god. The first time watching that movie, too, it was a complete failure. It was a complete failure because of one scene, and I can show it to you. It's this one. As she lunged her head back and her eyes turned white and I heard that groan, I catapulted through the air in the direction of the VCR with my finger extended and successfully hit the eject button. It scared the shit out of us, so it was actually a little while before I saw that movie from beginning to end. The main focus of the movie is a 12-year-old girl called Reagan McNeil. She's portrayed so innocent and friendly, and she loves her mom dearly.
All right, give it up. No!
Oh, how that changes later on. Reagan happens to have an imaginary friend called Captain Howdy, and she plays with a Ouija board so she can communicate with him. And if this were me right here, and I saw that piece fly across the board by itself, I would immediately let her know that Captain Howdy needs to go. And since she played with the Ouija board, Reagan opened herself up to being possessed by Captain Howdy, who is really a demon claiming to be the devil himself.
You know what she did? Your canting daughter?
The way they handle Reagan's possession is outstanding. It's just this slow escalation of bad behavior, and her mom, who happens to not believe in any of this stuff, takes her daughter to all kinds of doctors to try and find out if anything's wrong with her mentally or physically. Anytime the doctors have a possible explanation, they run all kinds of tests and come up with nothing. And you just feel awful for Reagan's mom, too. She's this loving mother that's trying to help her child, but she can't get any answers from the people she believes are supposed to be able to help. And as the movie progresses, Reagan gets worse and more crazy shit keeps happening in the house. Beds are shaking, Reagan is flopping around violently, objects flying around and moving on their own. And there's actually an interesting story behind this scene here too. When Reagan's mom falls, she's screaming in pain for real. The harness that was supposed to pull the actress away didn't work properly, giving her a long-term back injury. And of course they kept the scene in the movie since it was so convincing. And this scene right here too, when I actually did watch this movie from beginning to end, this scene haunted my head for days. It's horrifying. As a horror movie veteran, very few movies have made me feel the way this spider walking scene has. And this wasn't even part of the theatrical release, it was a deleted scene until the 2000 re-release of the movie. So I can't even imagine what audiences in 1973 would. And eventually the situation gets to the point where the doctors just run out of answers, and they realize, you know what, maybe there's something wrong with her that's over our head.
You have any religious beliefs?
No. Why?
You ever heard of exorcism?
So Reagan's mom is forced to confront the possibility that there may be something inside her daughter that she can't explain scientifically, and she's forced to reluctantly seek the help of Father Scariest, a priest that already has a lot on his plate. He's struggling with his faith, and he's trying to take care of his sick, elderly mother, who passes away during the movie, which the demon uses later to taunt him.
Your mother's in here with his cars. Would you like to leave a message? I see that she gets it.
Did you know my mother died recently?
Yes, I did. I'm very sorry.
No. Is Reagan aware of it?
Not at all.
And Father Scariest isn't experienced with exorcisms either, since he focuses on psychological explanations, but eventually realizes that this is the real deal. He seeks the advice of the church, and help comes in the form of Father Marin, a priest experienced in exorcisms, who also happens to be a paleontologist. You see him right at the beginning of the movie, digging around in the desert and finding artifacts depicting some kind of demon, and we get a glimpse of a creepy-ass statue foreshadowing the conflict between the two. And he's got a heart condition that he has to take pills for. I mean, who wouldn't after spending a lifetime exorcising demons out of people? Once the exorcism officially starts, Reagan doesn't look like a sweet 12-year-old girl anymore. They have her tied down to the bed, her face is all cut up and pale, she looks completely unrecognizable, and kudos to Linda Blair, who played Reagan. She is completely convincing as a little monster. And the exorcism turns into complete chaos. She starts floating in the air, she's berating both priests constantly.
Confront this cruel demon.
The room starts shaking violently, her head turns completely backwards, and the room they're in gets really cold, and it looks so authentic because it really was cold. Before filming started, the room was cooled down with 4 air conditioners, and temperatures would go as low as 40 below zero. So when you see their breath coming out in the movie, you are genuinely seeing these actors freezing their asses off. Today, they would have just added some CG breath. The entire exorcism is one of the most haunting scenes in movie history, and it's not all about scares and shock value either. Father Marin and Scariest have a hard time getting the demon out and are forced to take a break. And during the break, they discuss the demon's motives, and it turns into a conversation about doubt versus faith.
I think the point is to make us despair. To reject the possibility that God could love us.
After this, Father Merrin makes the mistake of trying to take the demon head-on by himself, and his heart condition catches up to him. With no other choice, Father Karras makes a huge sacrifice by coaxing the demon inside of him. This is one of the most iconic movie endings ever filmed, and it had such an impact that the steps he tumbled down even became an official historic landmark in DC. The Exorcist is one of those rare movies that becomes timeless and holds up decades later. If you've never seen it and you watch it now, the plot might seem a little basic to you, but that's only because the premise of the movie has been used so many times throughout the years by countless other movies trying to ride on its success. You don't have a Halloween movie marathon ready just yet? Make one and add The Exorcist to the list. You won't regret it. If you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit that like button for me. And if you remember the first time you watched The Exorcist, leave me a comment down below and share your story. I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for more outstanding content. This is Fabian, and I'm out of here. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.